I hope everybody's having themselves a great night. We're here for an excellent match in movie Battleground between James White and Sandy Robinson. On the desk with me, I've got two absolutely phenomenal competitors and judges. I've got Jay Burns and Brian Michaels. One person I have extremely, a very good relationship. The other with a little bit more contentious. Just because when I'm not here, I always get told that I'm a heel. So yeah, I'm gonna go to my two judges right now. Jay, how are you doing?
I'm all right, bro. I didn't know Canadians could be heels, but that's fucking news to me.
Yeah, it was news to me as well. And I'm also gonna go over to my other co-host tonight, and one of my fellow judges, Brian Michaels, one of the best movie competitors I have seen in any of these leagues. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great. I was itching to be on this one because, I love Sandy. I love James. I knew this was going to be a great match. And then I found out that you're going to be on the panel too. So I'm loving this. I'm happy to be here.
All right. I'm super happy to have you here, man. I'm super happy to have Jay. And go to both of our competitors. Sandy Robinson, you've been a mainstay in this community for the last couple of years. And admittedly, like, your trivia game is absolutely crazy. And I can say the exact same thing about your competitor tonight as well. Like, there's very few people that can say that they have a win against Caleb Boatman in singles. So how are you feeling going up against James White tonight?
Sean, thanks for those kind words. I appreciate it. It's always good to see you back doing this kind of stuff. And you're not a heel, man. You're not. Don't let anybody tell you that. But anyway, you know what? I'm nervous. Debating is not one of my strong suits. I'm trying to get better at it, which is why I'm here. I have all the respect in the world for James and his movie knowledge. I haven't played in a Full Metal trivia match since the Snowball 2 this winter, and I didn't fare too well in that particular thing. So I'm just hoping to give James a good match and debate well. But whatever the outcome is, I'm just happy to be here.
Fucking A. All right, and now we're gonna go over to James White. James, how you feeling about playing against Sandy? You've demonstrated that you're an absolutely phenomenal competitor. Like, how are you feeling tonight? What do you, where do you feel like your strengths are going to be? Where do you feel like, you really got to work at? And like, just overall, how are you feeling?
I appreciate that. I'm feeling pretty good tonight. Obviously, Sandy's a great guy and a great competitor in this league for many long whiles now. So I'm excited to be able to go up against him. I don't know where my strengths and my weaknesses are going to lie. This is my first time actually being able to get in and debate. But it's something that I'm passionate about. I love movies, obviously. So I'm excited to see how this goes, kind of get my feet wet and just kind of march on forward.
Okay, sure enough. All right. With those interviews out of the way, I'm going to explain just really quickly how this is going to work. You're going to have a 2-minute open. You're going to have 5 minutes of debate, and you're going to have a 2-minute closer. If both of you decide that you want an extension on your time, you get an additional 1-minute extension. Now that applies to both competitors. So if the both of you agree that you want an extension of 1 minute on the same argument, there's going to be an additional 2 minutes of debate. All right. And then once we get to the speed round, I'll explain it there. But for right now, let's just get it on. I'm going to drop off your first question right now.
Good luck, James.
You too, buddy.
Yeah.
I got to mute all these stupid things.
Your first question is going to be, all right, for this first regular standard round, there's going to be 3 questions. Your first question is going to be this. What film showcased Denzel Washington's best performance? And I think we're going to start with Sandy for this one, and then we'll throw it over to James. Sandy, go right ahead.
The movie that showcased Denzel's best acting performance, in my opinion, is Malcolm X. Malcolm X is a great movie, not just in its historical importance, but in the range that Denzel had to play. He went from playing a very young man who was cocky and had all full of energy and didn't really care about anything about himself, moving all along to becoming Malcolm X as we knew him at the end before his assassination. It's very important to know that because of that growth during the role, and the fact that because he had that growth, it showcased his talent as an actor completely and fully.
Okay. Anything else to add, or is that going to be your opening argument?
That's my opening argument.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to move over to James. James, your opinion.
I believe that Denzel Washington's strongest performance is in the film Glory. It's a much underrated film. It's a much underrated performance. Denzel Washington broke onto the scene with this role, being nominated and winning Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars. This is a character that has so many emotions. It's not just a one-note performance. He has a range of different emotions that he puts into this character, and the weight in which that he's able to express things in just little bits of dialogue or a simple glance is just more powerful than what anybody could do with that same role. Glory is a fantastic film, but it hinges on his performance more than any other. Malcolm X as well is all about a Denzel Washington performance, but I believe if anybody else had that role in Glory, it would not have elevated the film. It would have just been a mediocre film about the Civil War. With Denzel Washington's performance in there, it elevates it to a much higher standard. I'll cede the rest of my time.
Okay. All right. And now with that, we're going to get into the 5 minutes of debate. So, yeah. I'll let you guys go.
Well, go ahead, Sandy. I'll let you.
Yeah, like I just wanted to say, yeah, Glory is a great performance. There's no question about that. But I would argue that the supporting cast around Denzel Washington really helped that performance, whereas the supporting cast really was not as strong, and Denzel really had to make the Malcolm X performance his own to really push that movie forward.
But the thing with Malcolm X is the most memorable scenes in Malcolm X are all the Malcolm X speeches. They're, speech after speech after speech. That's what you really remember about Malcolm X. And Denzel just was able to look at Malcolm X's actual speeches and kind of copy the mannerisms, copy the diction, copy the words completely. And with Glory, he had to create this character out of absolutely nothing. The most powerful scene in Glory, he's being whipped. You see the shirt ripped off his back and all these scars, and he's being whipped over and over again. He doesn't make a sound. He stares at that captain, and just a single tear rolls down his cheek. And you can give a million other actors that role, and with 1,000 words, they wouldn't be able to portray just a fraction of what he was able to have come over in just that glance.
And you're right that if we were talking like the best scenes in movies, you're right, that scene might just be up there. But we're not just talking about speeches with Malcolm X. We're talking about his growth from a young man, and where there were no speeches, where he had to take what was historically known from other people and create that role where he was, where he was this young man and just partying and having a good time, with the red hair and the big hats and the, and the zoot suits and dancing with just wanting to get the girls. That was nothing. That was what we know about Malcolm X in from his speeches and stuff like that. It was, and that's half the movie. The rest of the half is him fighting to gain this and fighting to gain supremacy, or not supremacy, but fighting for Islam and his own, and then to get discarded by the Islam Brotherhood. It's a complete performance, and doesn't just rely on one or two scenes for that movie to be the best performance.
I don't believe that my film requires one or is hinging on one or two scenes, but I don't believe that your film is a range of emotions like you put it. He was partying and doing all these things as a young man, but when he's grown up and he's actually, the Malcolm X that we all remember from, newsreels and things like that, it's the same personality. You know, it's still this over the top, this boisterous personality that would be, you know, at the same time going out and getting drunk and doing all these things, running around. The performance in Glory, he had these over the top moments, obviously, and then he had those subtle moments. Like I said, that scene with just no dialogue, just a single stare. It shows completely different sides of what an actor can do. It wasn't any sort of one-note performance. I believe Malcolm X is a great performance, but I think it's mostly one note the entire way through. It's kind of over the top. Malcolm X was over the top, but it's just over the top the entire way, and it doesn't really have a very big range of emotions like you see in Glory.
Yeah, you're right. The emotion in Glory is there. It's also there in Malcolm X. And like I said, why I keep on going back to the past is because there is a huge difference. When Malcolm X became Malcolm X, he became this more quiet, this more subdued person, somebody who was trying to be an activist for something that he believed in, something that he was forced to become because of how his father was killed, because his mother was sent to a psychiatric, infirmatory. That all of those things built him up to be this person that showed up later. Yeah, his early life was reckless, but that also caused what changed his performance and how he grew as a man and as a person. And you didn't see him going out and getting drunk and hitting women and doing all that kind of stuff like he did when he grew up, and he understood that he had a role to play. And that's why I think that his performance in Malcolm X, even though Glory's performance is fantastic, the Malcolm X performance is just a more thorough role for him.
1 minute.
See, in Glory, we didn't need any flashbacks to see Private Tripp. All we needed was to see the scars on his back to know his backstory. When that shirt was pulled off and you saw those whip marks, you knew his backstory. You didn't need any dialogue. You didn't need any exposition. You knew what he had been through. You didn't need to see flashbacks and see what he had been going through on the different plantations and stuff. You didn't need to see his past as a young man doing whatever like you do in Malcolm X. When that shirt comes off and you see those scars, you know his story. And just through acting, through what he was able to put out onto the screen without very much dialogue, without a whole lot of scenes, he steals that movie. People don't think of it as a Matthew Broderick movie very often. People don't think of it with all these supporting characters. They think of Denzel Washington more than anything.
And yeah.
Guys, really quickly, 30 seconds.
Okay. Just to close off my point, I understand seeing the whip marks is fantastic. Is fantastic for the movie to give you that background. But the journey throughout the entire movie is what we're talking about as a performance overall. And setting up a couple of scenes from a movie, while they may be great scenes, doesn't build the whole movie as a complete Denzel Washington performance. So that's why I think that Malcolm X is the better performance for him.
All right, James, 30 seconds.
We're not talking about the best journey. We're not talking about, what performance from beginning to end is the best. We're talking about the best acting performance of Denzel Washington, and there is not a better acting performance than Glory. The amount of emotion that he gets across in that performance is just incredible. It brings you to tears. It lifts you. At the very end of the film, without giving spoilers and stuff like that, at the end of the film, just the look on his face as he's about to march on, and when he's given the flag, it's like it just gives you everything.
All right, time on the general debate. Now I'm going to throw it over to Sandy for his 2-minute closing, and then I'll throw it over to James.
It's very important that we understand the question that we're asking. This is what movie is the best showcase for Denzel's talent as an actor? And even though Glory is a great movie and it does showcase his talent, other people are very much part of that movie. Morgan Freeman's in that movie. Carl Elwes is in that movie. Matthew Broderick is in that movie. And even though they're not considered to be the mainstays of that movie, they are still part of it and build that movie with Denzel. Malcolm X is really, really a very Denzel Washington solo performance. Are there other people around? Yeah, but they're They're background people. They're just there to progress Malcolm's story and Denzel's story. He literally put this movie on his back and acted the crap out of it. And it made you believe in everything that he was dealing with and everything that he'd gone through. It just means that it's a solid performance from Denzel Washington throughout an almost 3-hour movie, which is very, very hard to do these days. So I'm not going to take all 2 of my minutes. I'm going to cede my time, but I just think that this movie is the best showcase for Denzel Washington as a performer, hands down.
Okay. And 2 minutes to James now.
Look, I think that Angela Bassett would like to be recognized in Malcolm X and not just be pushed to the side here. Malcolm X is mostly on Denzel Washington, but that's not the question. The question is, what has the longest Denzel performance? What has this? It's the best performance from Denzel Washington. Now, I've said before, Denzel has so many things to pull from with Malcolm X. He had all the speeches to go through. He had all this history and all the video to kind of copy who Malcolm X was as a person. You had so much just raw data that he could sit there and pull from. And in Glory, this is a character that he has to make up completely. It's a tragic backstory with Private Trip and the things that he's gone through. And it's a redeeming character arc. As you see him progress through the movie, he has all these different interactions with the captain and with the different military personnel. He's got a very strong problem with authority, and you see as the movie goes on that he has that whittled down a little bit as it goes, and he becomes a soldier. He becomes a team player for the Union forces there. And I know I keep going back to that scene, but that is the most powerful scene that Denzel Washington has ever given, and to encapsulate the entire performance with that scene. Now there are other fantastic moments in that movie as well. The scene inside of the tent when you're first introduced to him, that you're given this character that you really don't know very much about, and he's so kind of over the top and boisterous. But then as you learn about him, as you learn his backstory, you feel like some of that armor that he's put on. It's 100% intentional that he's so big and strong and over the top at first, because he has this armor that he's been beaten both literally and figuratively his entire life.
Time. Okay. Now that we've heard all the arguments from both competitors, I think I'm going to throw it over to Brian first. Brian, on the argument, who do you feel had the stronger argument, and what's your pick going to be?
You got to go to me first, don't you? They picked two of the best ones because they're both great performances, obviously. I really liked James really hit him when he started talking about how a big part of Malcolm X was the speeches, and he was kind of he had Malcolm X's actual footage to kind of copy that. But I think Sandy did an awesome job of combating back, saying how he showed off when he started off young and cocky, and his transition, his growth from that to being Malcolm X. I'll tell you what tipped the tables for me, made my decision for me, though. I think that at one point James did a really good job when he talked about how Denzel was able to convey emotion with just a look, or like with the one tear on his face, and the scenes like that, the more subtle things. And so for that tiny detail, it edges me to James.
Okay. All right. Jay, what do you think?
This was a tough one for me. I thoroughly enjoyed both of these gentlemen's arguments. They both brought up some fantastic points. And when it comes right down to it, I heard even with the subtle jab that it's about the best performance, and there are other people in the movie. I've got to lean towards Sandy on this. I heard more throughout Sandy's argument about what makes his performance throughout the movie, not just one scene, but throughout the movie, what makes it better. And I heard a lot of one scene talked about repetitively by James, and even with that little bit at the end where he started moving on, if he had spent a little bit more time during that 5-minute round, I might have edged it towards him a little more. That's just where I'm standing right now.
Okay. I see where the both of you are coming from. If I'm being honest with you, I feel as though the nuances within the performance were talked about more by James. But the problem is Sandy actually talked about the overall arc of the character, and that was the focal point of his argument. So I'm in a really weird position, and I think if I had to give it to one person, I'd have to give it to James on this point. And the reason for that is the fact that, yes, Malcolm X, you do have real life footage to go off of. That's not an argument against performance, though. And because there was no argument against that, I have to give James the point. So, yeah, that's
not going to be shut out.
So, with that, we're going to give James the point. So, all right. Your next question is going to be, what is the best one-shot sequence in a movie? And with this one, since we went to Sandy last time, we're going to go to James first. James, what's your opinion?
My pick for the best one-shot sequence, the best long take in a film, is the car scene in Alfonso Cuarón's Children of Men. This scene is what you get when you have a master filmmaker that has 100% control over his vision. There is just a single car with 4 people in it, and the camera pans back and forth between every single character. You see out the windows. You don't see any rigging. They had to create a special rig to put on top of this car manned by 4 different camera operators just to get this shot. And it's absolutely beautiful. The amount of precision that took to do this shot, it was just an incredible amount of both artistry and technical achievement. It is probably the best one-shot take of all time.
Okay. And with that, we're going to throw it over to Sandy.
Okay, so I chose for my one shot scene something that one of the movies that I consider one of the greatest movies of all time, and this one shot is absolutely epic by one of the greatest directors of all time, and that's Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas and the Copacabana scene.
Had no Scorsese was going to be brought up in this conversation.
Well, and there's a reason for that. He is one of the greatest contributors to the one-shot deal. He practically brought it to movies. It had been done before, but Scorsese perfected it. And this scene is no doubt the way the camera moves in between the 2 characters, and the way it weaves itself through the kitchen and everything, it's seamless, and it showcases the talent so well in a non-cut form that it just makes that scene so rewatchable that you want to just rewind it all the time and watch that whole scene over and over again. So that is my pick for the best one-shot scene in movies.
Okay. And with that, we can start our 5 minutes of debate. James?
Yeah, I absolutely said the wrong movie title. I meant Children of Men, obviously.
Okay.
Look, Children of Men is such an underrated movie. That movie is fantastic. And this scene is so personal and so intimate, and you bounce back and forth between all 4 of these characters. And the first time that I saw the movie, I didn't even realize that it was a single take. I didn't realize that they didn't have any cuts in between that. And when I researched more into it and I saw what they had to do to go through to actually get this shot, I was just amazed. They spent 12 days to get this single shot, with 4 different people sitting on top of a roof and a just customized rig to do this. And it's incredible. Now, the Goodfellas scene is iconic. If we're going for the most iconic one-shot, absolutely. Goodfellas, obviously. It's not about the most iconic. It's about the best. You have one guy following Ray Liotta down a hallway for about 2 minutes. Big deal. That's not a big deal. No, What we're talking about is the best. This is the most technical, the most artistic, the most just engaging scene, and that is 100% Children of Men.
Yeah, and like I said, I respect your movie. It is a very underrated movie, but I mean, this movie doesn't get made without Scorsese doing it first. So that scene doesn't exist without Scorsese. Scorsese does something in the Cabana scene that doesn't happen otherwise. We do, yeah. You can say it may not be the most exciting scene, but to say it's not engaging, you are absolutely completely engaged in those characters, even if they're walking down a character, because you're following what they do, you're seeing their cadence. And it doesn't always mean the most flamboyant scene. Sometimes the most simple things are still the best things, and you have to look at the scene, what the cameras are doing, what the director wants you to see, and how the actors are doing it to be able to exist in your movie. And that movie is great, but that scene, I'm here to tell you, I didn't remember it. I had to go back and look for it, but nobody can tell you. You mentioned Copacabana and they automatically say Goodfellas.
That's because it's because it's an iconic scene. Like I said, it's an iconic scene. Yes, it's an iconic scene. I'm not taking that away from you, but there's no way that you can tell me that Alfonso Cuarón couldn't have gotten a scene made just because Marty Scorsese did it 40 years ago. Now, I know Goodfellas is not 40 years ago, but Martin Scorsese is just known for his long shots. It's not just Goodfellas. He's done it over and over and over again. This is his best. It's his most iconic, obviously, but Children of Men is not this over-the-top scene as you're portraying it. Children of Men is just as subtle. You're talking about four people sitting in a car having a conversation, but the camera just pans back and forth in a circle. It's got a 360-degree view inside and outside of the car without any interference. You don't see any cameramen, any rigs, anything. And the technical achievement of that is just incredible. The amount of precision that you had to have between 4 different camera operators to get this scene to work. Yours is a handheld tracking shot with 1 camera operator just following 2 people down a hallway. Now you have to have people coming in and out of frame at the right times, but the amount of precision that you need for that is just nothing compared to the precision that you have to have with 4 people sitting in a single car as it's driving with 4 people on the roof controlling the cameras.
And James, you know what? I completely appreciate you making my point for me. 1 camera doing it all instead of 4 with 4 different people and a multitude of these people doing that stuff. Scorsese did it with 1. And did it to perfection where it is absolutely remembered. And you're looking at a camera going down a hallway, and you're supposed to focus on the 2 different people. How Ray Liotta's character is walking with confidence, how Lorraine Bracco's character is walking with less assurity than that. And that whole scene gives you that full grip of what one person feels and what another person feels. I get it. I get it that technology changes and camera work can get better and stuff like this. But like I said earlier, sometimes the most simple makes the most impact. And having 1 camera and having no cuts, that is what the 1 shot means. Having 4 people and 4 cameras and a bunch of multitude to do other stuff in your movie, less impressive because it takes more people to do it.
I completely disagree.
20 seconds, guys.
No, I completely disagree. The amount of precision involved in Children of Men to get that done is incredible. And it is a very subtle movie. You have Julianne Moore there just talking very, very quietly. There's no action yet. It's not until later that you have the people coming out of the woods. This is a very subtle scene with a lot of technical behind it.
Time, guys. But yeah, I guess with that, we'll start with James.
Look, just because you have 1 camera doesn't make it a better film. Just because you have 4 cameras doesn't make it a better film. What we're talking about is the shot. It's the best shot. It's not the most iconic shot. Now, you have Ray Liotta walking down a hallway just with people coming in and out of it with great music played behind it. That's going to enhance your appreciation of the film. You love Goodfellas, obviously, but that doesn't make it the best shot. This single shot with 4 people sitting in a single car with 4 people on a roof and 12 days to take, and you don't even realize it's a single shot until you watch it a second or a third time. That's the impact of this. It's so subtle and it's so like unnoticeable that he was able to perform this miraculous achievement. You don't realize how difficult it is until you realize, or until you reach back and you research it. The hallway scene, like I said, it's an iconic scene, but it doesn't make it very, good or great. It's a tracking shot. You're walking with a handheld camera, just following somebody down a hallway, and you put a great song over top of it, and everybody remembers. The Children of Men scene is going to be analyzed and studied for decades to come about how to make a 360-degree scene just seamless and with so much emotion and heart to it that you don't even realize that it's a single shot until you analyze it frame by frame.
Sandy.
Well, James, you're right. Goodfellas is iconic, and iconic. Being iconic doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. But I'm really glad you brought up the difficulty level, because it took much more of a difficult filming to do it with one camera, to do wide, to do screenshot, to backlit. The Steadicam operator, Larry McCorkley, had explained the difficulty he faced in blending the close and wide shots within a tight sequence, and it took half a day for it to do, with one camera and one guy. It's important for that to be mentioned, and it was 30 years ago. Without the technology that we have today, without the extras that we have today, this scene is very, very important to the film. It's very important to to history, to movies, because, like I said, without Scorsese and him being able to bring this particular thing up, Alfonso Cuarón might have been able to figure it out, in his directing career, but when you're the originator, when you're somebody that puts it on the map, then everybody starts to do it. So credit has to be given where credit is due. And in this movie, the Copacabana scene is as important a scene for just the movie and the characters that it's following, better than almost any other movie out there.
With that, I'm going to throw it over to Jay. Jay, you get this whole ball rolling.
Again, another great round of arguments. Another great round of thoughts between both of these two. This one is difficult. I do like the fact that Sandy brought up. It is simple. It is sweet. It is to the point. You don't need 4 cameras. You don't need this. It's this. This is the difficulty that it was 30 years ago. Now you progress another 15, 20 years, and then you get something like you would in Cuarón's movie, going over what everybody said, just trying to replay the argument in my head. I'm going to give this one to Sandy just by this much.
Okay. I find this one to be a challenging one to judge, just specifically because James brought up the technical proficiency of how that entire shot was set up, and with that, it's a really hard position to argue against. But I feel as though the minimalistic style in which Sandy wound up talking about the shot from Goodfellas, I do feel like I got to give this one to Sandy. So with that, it's 1-1. Your third question, your final question for this round, is going to be this: pitch us a David Bowie biopic. And with that, I'm going to start with Sandy.
So when I think of a biopic, I want a biopic that can span through the ages. I want young all the way to the end of somebody's lifetime. And I have chosen Ben Whishaw and to act as David Bowie, and Danny Boyle to direct it. Ben Whishaw is a fantastic. If you watched him in I'm Not There, where he was one of the people that played Bob Dylan in that movie. his acting style fits very, very well with biopics. Him playing a young David Bowie, and even with the help of makeup or aging technology, he has the right cadence and the right body structure to be able to pull that entire lifetime up in one, except for children. You know, we'd obviously have to get a younger child in there. But for the most part of his adult career, Ben Whishaw would be able to play that role perfectly. Danny Boyle, on the other hand, is going to be able to direct this movie because he's directed a ton of really, really good movies that focus on the characters, and that's what we're looking for in a biopic, is the character, the journey of the character. You know, you take Train Spotting 1 and 2, you take 127 Hours, where we're focusing on just one person and their struggles, in that. It's very Slumdog Millionaire, another one of those movies where you've got one character that is going throughout this entire journey. So I think Danny Boyle can direct this movie. Ben Whishaw can act this movie, and I think that it has to span from the very start of his early career, maybe even before that, all the way to the end of his life. So Danny Boyle, Ben Whishaw.
All right. And moving over to James. James, pitch me a David Bowie biopic.
Look, Sandy's 100% right. You need somebody that's going to be able to play David Bowie as a young man all the way through the end of his career. And the good thing about David Bowie is that he didn't really change physically, other than a outside appearance. But his actual face doesn't change very much from a young man to an old man. So you can get away with having a younger actor play this character, and that's why the person that I believe was just perfect to play David Bowie is Tom Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston not only can sing, but he has this ability to play this over the top character that David Bowie was. David Bowie is an enigma. He's such an odd person, and Tom Hiddleston has proven through his different past performances that he can play a person like this. I mean, just Loki alone is basically David Bowie with dark hair, and that's just perfect for me. Some sound there. Okay. Hiddleston has proven he did this Hank Williams biopic where he was singing, that he has a good enough voice, and he has about the right register to sing for Bowie as well. So that would kind of get away from the problems that I had with Bohemian Rhapsody, where you're not having to overdub. You can actually let him sing, as they're doing with Rocket Man. And the director that I have in mind is somebody that also has a very eclectic, a very out-of-the-box style. Somebody that has directed film, that has directed music videos, and that's Boots Riley. Boots Riley is so crazy in his head. He has such an odd perspective on things that would line up perfectly with David Bowie. They absolutely are simpatico, and this would be a perfect pairing of Boots Riley, Tom Hiddleston. You merge them together, and you get David Bowie.
With that, we're going to go into the 5-minute debate period, and then we'll get our closing arguments from everybody. Yeah.
Look, Danny Boyle is Danny Boyle is a terrible, terrible pick for this. Danny Boyle's movies are so dour and so depressing, and there's no light to them. David Bowie is all about having different levels. He has some depressive periods, but he also has the Ziggy Stardust stuff way over the top. And Danny Boyle is not going to be able to deliver that the way that Boots Riley will. Boots Riley has the ability, he has the pedigree, he has the track record to be able to do these music video style things. And if you've seen Sorry to Bother, he has this outside the box thinking that's going to be way better than anything Danny Boyle could do with this.
You're right. You're right. You're right about your pick as an actor. He would be an absolute great David Bowie if he wasn't so associated with who you brought up, Loki. Nobody would believe Tom Hiddleston as David Bowie because the entire world sees him as Loki now. It's not possible. Ben Whishaw he's already done this. He's already proven himself. He doesn't have those classic good looks that Tom Hiddleston does. He doesn't have the acting pedigree that Tom Hiddleston does. What he has is a blendability that Tom doesn't have. He can play, he can bend himself into this role and make it his own. David Bowie was 99% of his life dark. If you've read his biography, as I have, because my wife is one of his biggest fans, he went through most of his life in a dark, depressive state. Ziggy Stardust was a reflection of the inner light of himself, but he was still depressed when he was doing it. He was still dark when he was doing it. So Danny Boyle is absolutely perfect to do this and draw out that darkness, to give us the real life of David Bowie instead of what we saw on screen. And Ben Whishaw is the right person to play it, because he can blend himself into that role and make you believe that he's David Bowie instead of making you believe that he's not Loki.
Look, Tom Hiddleston has done so much more than just Loki. You're sitting there trying to compare him, as he's this one-note actor. He's been in so much more than that, so give him a lot more credit. Now with Danny Boyle, I understand that, yes, he's got a lot of dark history in his past with David Bowie. But that doesn't mean that you have to have somebody that just has such dark movies. I mean, Trainspotting, there's very little levity in Trainspotting other than just like the shenanigans that they get into. The thing that you need with a Bowie biopic, you need somebody that's going to be able to have that irreverent feel of what David Bowie is as a character, because he is more than just an artist. He's more than just a person. He is a character. He goes from being a Davy Jones or whatever to becoming Ziggy Stardust and Starman and all this other stuff. Speaking of which, that is the title of my movie, is Starman. But the thing that Boots Riley would be able to do with this is to give you the dark elements. There's so much darkness in Sorry to Bother You. So yeah, there's absolutely 100% that he's able to do the dark stuff as well. But he's able to give you that absolute batshit crazy that I don't think Danny Boyle would be able to get to. He can go to psychedelic places. He can do these things that you would only associate with a music video. He can go to crazy, crazy places. And Danny Boyle, I think, would be really struggling to go to those same places. Tom Hiddleston is so much better than you're giving him credit for. I'll let you speak.
Listen, I know Tom Hiddleston has done more. There's no question about that. But we're talking about this particular movie. And Danny Boyle, he's just not a one-hit pony. He's just not dark. Have you seen Steve Jobs? He's actually done a biopic before. He's actually done a biopic. So he's got that experience. And if you watch that movie, it delved deep into who Steve Jobs was as a person, not just the one that we know out there. And that's what we want to see from a David Bowie movie. And by the way, my David Bowie movie is called Rocket Man. That's mine. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're just going to have Rocket Man 2 after we have the Taron Egerton Rocket Man next year. Now, the thing that we have to get it. Look, you're throwing shade at Tom Hiddleston, saying he's just Loki. First of all, the only time anybody even recognizes him as Loki is if he has a long dark wig on. He's not going to have that. He's going to have like a puffy pink wig, because that's who David Bowie is. Boots Riley's going to direct the shit out of this. Oh gosh. All right. So Hiddleston, Boots Riley, Starman. I have about 10 seconds left. There's so much darkness and irreverence.
All right. Time. Okay. Closing arguments. We're going to start with Sandy.
Okay. I'm really happy that you brought up the fact that I'm taking a name from another movie that's coming out. I don't know if you heard about this little Jeff Bridges movies back in the 80s called Starman. Could trip you up a little bit. But the simple point is that you have an experienced director who's able to get to the meat of the subject and get into a dark place, get into what we need to see from a David Bowie pick. He's already done a biopic. He's done a lot of personal personal movies that show emotion, that show depth. And then you bring in Ben Whishaw, who's already proven himself that he can play a famous musical character and do that very, very well. He was singled out as one of the best players in that movie. Very underrated performance because it doesn't get picked up a lot. But if you watch it, he's able to dig into Bob Dylan like nobody was able to do before, and that's what he's going to be able to do with David Bowie. He's going to be able to dig into David Bowie and really bring out the meat of it, and not just in one spot of his career, in the entirety of his career. And that's why I think that Danny Boyle is the best director, because he's going to be able to take that and run with it, and he's got somebody that he can play with and let run with the role, and the two combined are going to be able to make a great biopic that shows us who David Bowie was and not just who he was on stage.
Okay. And now we're going to go to James. James, start whenever you want to.
All right, you're talking about a movie that came out in the 80s versus a movie that came out in 2019. This movie is coming out right now, so if you're pitching a movie that's going to be the same name as a title that's coming out this year, you're already behind the eight ball. My movie came out 35 plus years ago. Nobody's going to care that another movie was called Starman. Tom Hiddleston is fantastic in Kong Skull Island. He's fantastic in War Horse. These other movies that he's not Loki. Boots Riley has the right attitude, the right pedigree, the right history to direct a musical biopic about this person. He knows darkness. He knows crazy. He knows psychedelics. Watch Sorry to Bother You, and it's basically just an audition to do a David Bowie biopic. You bring in some cameos from Taron Egerton as Elton John, since they were friends as children. You bring in Rami Malek, and they do Under Pressure together, and you have a fantastic movie. You bring all these people in, and it's a fantastic movie. I love it. Let's go, Starman. I'm done.
Okay. I appreciate both arguments coming from both competitors. I will say the challenge for me on this one is trying to take myself out of a musician's mindset. I'm a really big David Bowie fan, and if I'm being honest with you, my knowledge about David Bowie, I think Sandy hit on the points about David Bowie's history a lot more strongly. That's just personally my opinion, and with that, I'd have to give the point to Sandy, just in my opinion. And I'll throw it over to Brian. Brian, what do you think?
Well, I think you're both wrong on the title. The title should be Space Oddity. You can name it after a David Bowie song.
That'd be fantastic.
I think that I think both the stars would do well. I do think that Tom Hiddleston could be fine in. I mean, people have seen him in lots of other roles too. So I think I don't think the association with Loki was anything much to hit him on.
Yeah.
But neither actor really swayed me either way, because I like them both. I think what swayed me was the director, because I think that for David Bowie, for somebody who is so odd and, like you said, with psychedelic things like that, I think Boots Riley is actually a brilliant pick for this, who I probably wouldn't have thought of, but I think he works for it. And then at the very end of his argument, when he threw in like bringing in Rami Malek for Under Pressure, James hooked me there. So
yeah, okay.
Point to James.
Fair enough. And Jay.
All right, coming in as breaker here. Y'all are all wrong. The title of his biopic should be Black Star. I'm just saying. That out of the way. Yeah, I'm not really concerned about who plays David Bowie. I heard more about why Ben Whishaw would probably be a better Bowie. I heard more about why Danny Boyle would be a better director to suit the darkness that was David Bowie, even though he was kind of trying to be this not so depressive individual, but dealing with depression all throughout it. Boots Riley is a rapper. You know, he's a rapper, he's a producer, he's a screenwriter. And I think that right there is
music video director.
Yeah. Had Sandy hit you with he's only directed one feature film, I think I would have to give this point to Sandy, but decent pick of the director, the fact that you literally stated he does know how to do music. And he's right. Bringing in Rami Malek to do Under Pressure is by far one of those big hits. I'm going to have to give this one to James.
Oh, shit. I wasn't expecting that.
All right. One James. All right. We're going to the speed round. And your first question for the speed round, we're going to get two people to just pick right off the bat. Which franchise is better? Twilight or Maze Runner?
Twilight.
Okay, Maze Runner.
So we're going to have 30 seconds per person. And then for rebuttals, we're going to have 15 seconds apiece. All right. So I'm going to start. Sandy, since you answered first, I'm going to start with you. Your time starts whenever you begin speaking.
Twilight's the better franchise. Don't even look about the actors. It doesn't really matter. Twilight hit a nerve with a certain portion of the public, and it went absolutely insane. For that reason only, it's the better grouping of movies. Is the acting good? No. Is the story good? Not really. But the movies themselves became a phenomenon to a bunch of different people. The book, the author, like just became like the new J.K. Rowling, and it has to be said that it made a ton of money.
Okay. Time. All right. And James, your time begins whenever you start speaking.
Sandy just said it. Is the acting good? No. Is the story good? No. The new J.K. Rowling? No. Look, the Twilight series is popular because of 3 shitty books by a really terrible fan fiction artist. That's why Twilight was popular. And then you had a couple of pretty people, and that's the only reason that Twilight made it. Now, the Maze Runner series didn't make as much of a movie because Twilight had already been there, and they already just fooled these tweens into going to see Twilight, and they said, screw it, we're not going to go see the other movie. But the other movie is so much better. The Maze Runner has a much better storyline. You have much better characters in it than you do in the stupid Twilight.
Time. All right, time. Okay, and now, Sandy, for your 15-second rebuttal.
Like, come on. The Maze Runner is just as stupid as Twilight. Just one actually hit more than the other. There's a reason it didn't make any money at the box office, because nobody went and saw it. Nobody was there to hook you in. It doesn't matter if you've got 2 pretty boys that you want to look at. Taylor Lautner and Robert Pattinson brought in the crowds. And that's all that matters when you're talking about a franchise.
All right. Time. Okay. James, your
Look,
turn.
I'm fairly certain the first Maze Runner movie made over like $250 or $300 million. It's successful. It was still a successful movie. The Twilight series is a bastardization of fan fiction. It makes all fan fiction people just burn in hell because this woman took fan fiction and she profited off of it. And that's not what fan fiction is about. It's about being happy and cheery and making people hook up with each other you shouldn't hook up with.
Time. Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to throw it over to Brian Michaels first. Brian, what do you think?
I think that the big stumbling block here for me was Sandy spent almost his entire time telling us that it made money and that it was more popular and that it was, they had the heartthrobs and all this stuff. And he said it was bad acting and bad stories. He told us why it was popular, but not why it was good. Yeah. Whereas James at least spent a little bit of time on that, although it took him a while to get to his own movie. But I give my point to James just based on that argument.
Okay. All right. Jay.
So just a clarification, there are 4 Twilight books. I think you're talking about E.L. James and the 50 Shades of Grey. Mm-hmm. And anyways, both of these franchises suck. We all know this, but one made a whole bunch of money and the other didn't. I think that got hit on pretty hard by Sandy. I would have to give Sandy my point this round.
Once again, I'm in a tough position on this one. I feel as though neither of them really tried to counter one another for the most part. But I mean, realistically, without actually fighting back on it, I have to give Sandy the point because when you make an appeal to authority, the argument that you make against it is that you just made an appeal to authority. And since that never happened, I've got to give Sandy my point on this one. So now it's 2-2. All right. For your last question, we come down to this. Who had a better acting debut, Matt Damon or Leonardo DiCaprio?
Matt Damon.
Leo.
Okay. All right. We're going to start off with James this time. James, give me your argument.
Look, Leonardo DiCaprio had to make his acting debut playing a mentally challenged person, and that is incredibly difficult. You're looking at somebody that has a has this broad career, but you're starting off on that, and like they've always said in Tropic Thunder, never go full retard. Leo did not go full retard on What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He was subtle, but he was able to convey enough emotion, and the difficulty in that performance is just way more than anything else that anybody else has had to do.
Okay, time. All right. I'm going to go to Sandy. Sandy, your time begins whenever you start speaking.
I consider Matt Damon's debut performance to be Mystic Pizza. He was very, very good in that movie, even though he didn't have a lot of screen time. But the screen time that he did have, he made use of it, which is why he continued to get acting roles after that. Leo's role in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, as good as it is, it was very one-dimensional. It didn't go anywhere. It was just the same the whole way through. Whereas Matt Damon in Mystic Pizza showed some range, showed some humor, showed some acting ability, which made it so that he was able to go further in his career.
All right, time. Okay. All right. James, your turn for rebuttals.
Look, Leonardo DiCaprio is not one note in that movie. He's playing a very nuanced character. You're playing somebody that has a mental challenge, and you're doing it in a way that is not mocking him. It's not putting any sort of bad light on mentally challenged people. And to be able to sit there and act against Johnny Depp in your first performance at that level is just incredible. What Matt Damon did in Mystic Pizza is nothing compared to what Leo had to do in What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Okay. All right, Sandy, your turn. Whenever you start.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape is a great movie and a very decent performance by Leonardo DiCaprio. It is not a great performance, whereas I think as an opening performance, you can jump in and say Matt Damon's performance was memorable in that movie. He's memorable. That's why you always remember him in that role. It made it so he was able to go farther. Leonardo had a bit of a break between his movies. So
time. I'm gonna go over to James first, I believe.
You said it was memorable, but I don't even know that Matt Damon was in Mystic Pizza until you just told me. Everybody remembers that Leonardo DiCaprio is in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He had award nominations for this movie. It's a much better film. It's a much better performance, and Leonardo DiCaprio is just known for What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Nobody knows that anybody in that movie except for Julia Roberts and her big teeth.
Okay. All right. Sandy, your turn.
Yeah, you'd mentioned a little earlier about who he played with Johnny Depp. I would guarantee you that out of the best people to work with, be Julia Roberts. You say that her big teeth are there, but that's not. Playing opposite her is what makes you a better actor.
Time. With that, I'm going to go with Jay.
Oh, I hate you coming to me first. Okay, so this is tough. This entire match has been fantastic.
It's been this. Yeah.
With this one, I heard a little bit about both of these characters. I'm going to give my point to Sandy because I heard how he gave a performance that actually moved up through not only the ranks, but also kept him going forward as a character in the movie. And he kind of had him with a slight little jab with the Leo took a little bit of a break after he did What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and he didn't really have anything after that. So that's why Sandy gets my point this round.
Okay. Two things. One, was What's Eating Gilbert Grape Leo's acting debut?
No.
film?
No, there was
it this
Critters
way?
he
and then
didn't
This Boy's
dispute it.
Life.
He
Yeah,
didn't
it was
dispute it.
Yeah, no,
There was-
he didn't. He didn't. I'm not saying
No, he was in a
not saying
Critters
he
movie
did,
and then
don't
This Boy's
worry.
Life.
Yeah,
I forgot it until
Yeah.
I said it, and he didn't dispute it.
I'm gonna have to give my point, just based on the arguments actually made, and not how accurate they necessarily are. I'm gonna have to give my point to James, even though Wicked and Gilbert Grape was not the actual acting debut. I'm gonna have to give it to James. So yeah, Brian, this comes down to you, man.
God, I hate you, Sean.
I know you do.
You know, they both had a couple. Well, like I didn't even realize that Matt Damon was in Mystic Pizza. I didn't remember him, and so so saying he's memorable was a little iffy because I looked it up to confirm that he was right, making sure he was in the movie. At the same time, though, it wasn't Leonardo's debut. But if we're not taking that in consideration based on just the arguments, I'd have to go with James.
Yeah.
Even though I hate that he used the loophole, but
Yeah, believe me, I'm with you on that one. And your winner, James White. Congratulations. Fantastic performance on both competitors. They absolutely brought it tonight. And I will say this right now. The winner may be facing someone who's actually on the panel right now. So that's definitely going to be interesting. But I'm going to throw it over to Brian first. Brian, what do you think of the match overall? How do you feel about the game that was played? Like, what do you think? Just give me your thoughts overall.
I had a blast listening to both these guys debate. I mean, they both did a great job. I mean, I kind of split mine throughout the course of the match, split my votes between them, and almost every one of them was a hard decision for me. I think there may maybe one round that I had a clear winner in mind for myself.
Yeah.
And then especially that last round where you made me make the deciding vote because you're a dick. That kind of sucked. But yeah, I had a blast. These guys are good, so.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic. All right, I'm gonna throw it over to my other co-host tonight, my fellow judge, Jay. Jay, what do you think, man?
This was one of the more entertaining matches that I have seen. Granted, y'all didn't get loud, y'all didn't get rowdy like one of your judges on this panel does when he competes, but I had a blast listening to the both of you. James, coming from a complete technical side on a lot of his arguments, threw me off a little bit, but it's always refreshing to see somebody come in from a different angle that you might not necessarily look at. And Sandy is like one of my best buds in this entire thing. He is an amazing person, and he might stumble over his words, but the words that he gets out are really just intelligent, and I can understand them and follow it from like a layman's perspective. So to see both sides be able to make such an amazing match was a blast, dude.
Oh yeah, unquestionably. I'll say right now, I think that both of these guys are absolute powerhouses when it comes to debating. Man, like I never like calling a match against Sandy Robinson. This, thankfully, I can say that this is the one and only time I've actually had to do so. But yeah, I mean, like James is just an absolute fantastic competitor. Whether it comes to trivia or debate, the guy is just absolute dynamite. And so I think that this was just an absolutely brilliant match. With that, I'm going to take it over to. Actually, really quickly, the winner of this match will be playing Brian Michaels.
Hey, let's go, Brian.
So best of luck to anybody.
Can't escape this guy.
Damn.
That's like part 3 now, isn't it, boy?
I'm bringing Brandon in too.
That's right. We'll have the.
Okay, I'll bring Joseph. Let's make it a thing.
All right, and with that, I'm going to throw it over to our winner tonight. Let everyone know where they can find you. You know, plugs. James, just let everybody know.
Yeah, this has been a great match. I had a blast debating Sandy. So glad that he didn't point out that Leo point there. That was really just all around. It was a great match, and I'm just so happy to be able to compete against somebody of the caliber of Sandy the Sandman Robinson. You can find me across all social media platforms at Gator24, but I use a 4 for the A, so that's G4TOR24.
Okay.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I don't ever post anything. I'm on Letterboxd. You can find me all across those guys. And I just started writing with my buddy Brandon Hanna for his blog, The Lords of Film. So I'm going to be putting up a review for The Favorite this week, and you can check us out over there.
All right, cool. And to our unfortunate loser tonight, Sandy the Sandman Robinson, where can everybody find you?
First off, let me just thank James, my opponent in this one. Very well-deserved win. You're one of my favorite people in this community. I want to thank the judges, Sean, Jay, and Brian. You guys are all awesome. Thank you for being here. I know how hard of a job it is to judge, especially when you have people that you like in the match. So I totally dig it. I'll tell you where I'm the most upset. The last question, that's a speed round question. You know what? Anybody can win that one. I picked Mystic Pizza. Yeah, whatever. But where I'm really upset about is James was hitting me so hard in that first Denzel one about Denzel having all of this material to go back from. Do you not think that there's a ton of material about the Civil War and how black people were treated in the Civil War? I'm so upset that I didn't bring that up. I completely forgot about it. So, but you know what? It is what it is. That's what Battlegrounds are.
What neither of you actually brought up was the fact that Denzel had actually played Malcolm X on Broadway 10 years before.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I forgot about that too.
Yeah.
So no, it was.
He did.
Yep, absolutely. It was an absolutely well-deserved win. I'm just privileged to be in this company of people. And you guys can all find me all over Full Metal Trivia. We got a whole bunch of new people. And you can find me, all of you new people out there, S Robinson 1799 on Facebook, Twitter, and Letterboxd, where I keep on making lists that nobody likes.
Your Star Wars list is garbage.
As per usual, it is impossible for Sandy Robinson not to be a good guy. So, all right, I'm going to throw it over to Brian Michaels. Brian, where can everybody find you?
You can find me all over here in the leagues, in Multiplex, and Full Metal. I'm competing, I'm helping write questions, all kinds of stuff. If you use Letterboxd, I'm under the name Cinephile. Facebook, just under my name. That's about it.
All right, and Jay?
Oh, damn, I've got a list. Let me see. You can find me on Facebook at JBurns. You can find me on Instagram at @bargang_Burns. You can find me on Twitter at JBurns253. You can find me on Letterboxd at JBR253. You can find me on YouTube at Burns of the Boatman and Your Friendly Neighborhood Movie Nerds. Both of those are hilarious, very long form. Go check them out. 4 hours to kill. And you can also find me destroying your childhood over in Nerdgasm, as a matter of fact, where I tell you how Dumbledore is the worst character in Harry Potter.
Jesus, that was proficient as hell. All right. I've been your host tonight, Sean Sandberg. You can find me at @SandbergSean on Facebook.